Max, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, thank you.
Hey, wonderful. It's working. I like when nothing goes wrong. It makes for a nice show. Well, Max, we've had you on a few times, but I'll give you a nice, fantastic little intro here that we crafted before the show. Max Myers is a resident of Sacramento, soon to be 72, which is a fantastic number. And he was just recently featured on Absolute Poetry, which you should check out on Facebook. It is a platform that is supported overseas in Europe right now, and it's all about poetry, I believe. Max, you can describe that more in a second. And he has 2 new publications since last we talked, which was a few months ago, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Correct.
The 2 new ones he has are At the Feet of Sages, Volume 2 is a second one there, and that is a collection of essays. And All Moments Are Grace, which this is a cool one, Max. Tell them that neat little fact there.
Yeah, I started that in 1967 and published this book in the spring of this year. So it's everything written since that time to this spring. So
that's awesome. It's been a little bit of a work in progress there.
Yep.
But glad it's here. I'm excited for it. And to find these books and publications, all of this is available on your Amazon, right? Max Myers at Amazon.com.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Amazon Books. Uh-huh.
Check him out, Amazon Books, Max Myers, Maxmyers. And eventually, in a day or so, I will have a Facebook post with a link to this show. So stay tuned for that. But, Max, we have some pieces to read. That's what we're here for. So why don't we get to it?
Okie doke. Well, the first poem here is called Here, and it's things are just starting to open up in Sacramento, and we've been living with boarded up storefronts and empty sidewalks, cafes that you can get orders to go, and that's it. Nobody can sit, nothing, and that's changing. So that's what this poem is about. This town is filled with loving faces, the quiet voices exchanging graces eye to eye. Along the shops, people walking hand in hand, softly talking as they step. Beneath the canopy of shading trees, the coolness of the breeze one can enjoy. See, they blend in seamlessly, acknowledge their commonality as citizens. One may not notice as one goes, but goodwill emanates from those I watch. A warm society in this place, a calm procession, not a race to nowhere. That's the first one.
Yeah, that one was called Here by Max Myers.
Yep.
You reading this piece, the first thing that jumps to my mind is, man, the things we used to take for granted, just some beautiful people watching and just seeing how everyone's going about their business. But I do think you're capturing what I am really, really hopeful for the society moving forward is people just relaxing a little bit more in the community they live in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
I think
you should miss it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I would like to get back to it as quick as we can, as all of us are hopeful for. But Max, you word all of this so well. All of your writing is fun to read because it doesn't feel like I'm trying to describe like a word here that's not really negative but not really positive. As far as the description goes, it doesn't feel hard to read any of your pieces. They're very fluid and they're very eloquent. So it's fun having you on here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
So shall we move to the next one?
Yeah, unless you got more to say about Here.
No, let's move on.
Okay.
This poem is called That, and the reason it is called that is because I have no word other than that to describe it.
Cool.
There is something within me, and that's what this poem is about. You'll see as it goes. There is that within me that peers, without voice, peers, with compassion, with love, without thought, peers. It is there before all else. I see through the same eyes, hear through the same ears, understand even in the silence that it is more than me, free of the guilt of living, free of the passion and pain, peering, open, accepting. The divinity within is. I would call it God, but it would not be enough. Yet there is that within me, silently peering, silently, quietly loving.
This piece is beautiful, Max. I have things I want to say, but I want to give you the first passing the torch to you on this one.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So prior to the show, for those of you tuning in, we hung out just a brief second, and we're like, okay, this is how we're going to organize this real quick. And prior to that, I was at home going, how am I going to organize this? When I talked to him, checking out what we're going to be reading. And when I read this piece, there was a point in it where I was like, I wonder how specifically the line, peering open, accepting, the divinity within is, I would call it God. That line is tricky to read if you don't know, if you're not the one who wrote it. And I was so happy to see that, because my guess was that you were going to pause on that point, and you did. So I'm happy that I read into it well enough that maybe I could have read it in a similar fashion that you did. But that's just an aside, kind of a fun little mechanical part. This is a cool piece. I want you to describe this a bit more. I know the whole point is that you obviously cannot, because it's indescribable. But I want to put you on the spot a bit.
Well, let me say this.
Yeah.
When I, whether my eyes are open or whether they're closed, there's something inside of me that is observing. Let's call it observing. I call it peering.
Aware.
Here. Yeah, there's something that's aware, and it's not me. Okay, it's something within me.
Wow.
It's a part of the universe within me, a part of the all and everything that is watching what is happening and not doing. It's watching, and it's compassionate, and it's loving, and I get to use the same eyes that it's using. I get to hear it through the same ears that it's hearing through, and it's just amazing to me, And I was thinking about it, and I go, what the heck could I call this? What is this thing inside of me? And that's what I said. I would call it God, but it wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, I agree. There are so many, before anyone out there is like, what is he talking about? What's going on here? There are, more than sufficient amounts of philosophies out there and religions and many things that are talking about what Max is talking about right now. And, the best way I can describe this piece is kind of beautifully talking around the bush, because the bush is indescribable,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
The Taoists have a saying that says that the Tao that can be described is not the real Tao.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's a really good one.
That's just how it is.
Yeah. And again, for anyone out there, because I'm aware that disclaimers must be made. These aren't always the views of the station, but this is really fun poetry to read for sure. Just before I get in trouble somewhere along the lines, who knows? The other powers that are watching me, I suppose. But this is a fantastic piece, Max. I'm glad, at the very least, it would have been a total change in tone if this voice that peers without was not loving and compassionate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's recently there was I forget which philosophy I was reading. I guess it would have been Taoism, the oneness of reality, and it's an interesting thought to think about, really, being all connected, because we're technically inside of the same universe and everything is touching.
Yeah.
We're all.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
yeah.
It's a thought that you should sit with and stare at for a long while. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, just don't try to break it down, that's all. Enjoy it.
Beautiful thing is, I don't think there's a need to.
Yeah, that's right. There isn't.
Feel free to try, though. It is fun. I like this next piece, too, that's coming up. This, I'll let you continue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to live in a little, I'll call it a village, for lack of a better word, a place called Moss Landing, down between Santa Cruz and Monterey. And I spent a lot of time walking the beach. I spent a lot of time by myself down there, thinking about the world and one of my favorite things was I just love the fog, man. And the fog would come in. Sometimes it would be pea soup. You couldn't even drive to the beach. But other times it would be, just like misty, And anyway, this poem is about that. It's about walking on the shoreline. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please. I have so much to say on this one. I'm so excited.
Okay. Those pensive years along the coast when I was a young man I lived, to walk the beach in heavy fog, collar up, skull cap down over my ears, hands buried deep into coat pockets. The silence of the fog at low tide seemed to whisper mystic phrases, emotional images without words, as ripples gently slapping the shore, keeping time according to the heavens' rhythm. In the distance, deep and low, the lonely sound of the foghorn. There was a comfort there while I walked the shoreline, deep in questions that needed no answers. I knew my place upon this earth.
This one is, to me, as a drink of fresh water is to someone who's been running for a while. Some of my favorite inclement weather is fog. So when I saw that this was kind of the whole scheme for this particular piece, I was quite excited. I massively enjoy this because this is something that I feel maybe many of us have felt being out in a natural setting that is enjoyable and where we want to be, and we are alone with it. And I cannot describe to you how, well, I suppose it's not for everyone. Maybe some people don't like it, but to me, that is what I would qualify as a sacred moment, a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I still yearn for as many of those as I can to this day. So this is a wonderful, thanks for letting us into this moment on this, because that is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful description of just being alone in a natural setting with just immersed in the surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any particular coast that comes to mind when you read this one?
Well, that was there at Moss Landing. It's
right.
The coastline between Santa Cruz and Monterey. It's a little fishing village.
Okay.
Right there.
Right.
Yeah, very, very sweet. Just they do a lot of fishing boat repairs and stuff there. It's a quiet little spot. Has a restaurant, several boat repair places, and a little antique kind of junk store. And there used to be a guy out on the road there named Vaughn who had a rock shop set up there. It was under awnings. He didn't have a building, but yeah, it was quite a place.
I can hear it in your words, and I can definitely feel it in this piece. I like this one a lot. Shoreline is a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think we've got two more, and we might have time to fit in both of them. I think we have time to fit in both of them for sure.
All right. I'll go ahead and read one.
Okay.
And I'd like you to read Crows if you're up to it.
It'd be my pleasure.
Okay. So I'll read one. One is the title of this poem. There was a moment when everything stood still. In that instant of stillness, all became. I could sense the oneness. I knew the oneness. I was one with the oneness. All existence shone upon me, connected, front to back, side to side, top to bottom. One breathing, pulsing being, all in that instant, still and quiet, but for the beating of my heart.
I like the tether back there at the end, but for the beating of my heart. This is, again, we kind of touched on this in one of the prior pieces with this idea of oneness. And am I correct in assuming this is kind of along those same veins?
Sure.
Yeah. Any more details you have on this piece? Because this is a fun one.
No, it was just a moment where everything came together, and there was I mean, it was for lack of a better term, I'll call it a moment of presence.
Ah, yes. Presence, a moment of clarity, moments. I love it.
Yeah.
My favorite line in this one, after the first two, it's the third line. In that instant of stillness, all became.
Yeah.
You do a fantastic job of leaving. Well, I suppose I need to get better at my description of rhyming and meter and phrasing and stuff like that, because I do have a writing show, but I've never really developed that skill too much. But all of those things and how you do it in this, I admire immensely. Your reading style is very fun, and this piece, the way you read it and the way you wrote it, it man, well done. That's all I can say. There's people who can write, and you're one of those. Very, very eloquent description there. But
well, thank you.
Yeah. No, I
guess I don't know what you'd call me, an armchair philosopher or something. It's not that I'm trying to figure out the world. What it is that I'm trying to document with my eyes and my heart how things are working in the world, how things are going, the interactions between things. And so, there's a lot of my poetry that kind of floats around the idea of connectedness or oneness or a unity. Unity is a common phrase in my poems.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm old, so I have a lot of life experience that
it's worthwhile to share.
And I reflect on these things. As stuff comes up, you can't turn your mind off. Mm-hmm. Your mind just going to babble at you endlessly. And some of the stuff it comes up with is kind of interesting,
Yeah. I am a high, strong, intense supporter of documenting these types of things in writing styles like this. Poetry, it's one of my favorite mediums for writing. Haikus, essays, another example. Do check out his book, At the Feet of Sages, Volume 2, to plug that in there real quick.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, this piece is a wonderfully still and quiet spiritual discussion of something that has been touched on so much in so many different philosophies. And I like your perspective on it.
Yeah.
I like it, Max.
I try to talk. I try to make it personal.
Yeah.
I think it's if somebody's going to resonate with it, they're going to resonate more readily if they sense the personal aspect of it.
You're actually, now that you mentioned that, if you look at this last piece and how you kind of phrased it, I suppose it flows so well from top to bottom with, as I said in the beginning of this, and I didn't even really kind of make the connection until now, there is a nice root for people to connect to kind of understand and listen in on what you're trying to say. And it's that last line, but for the beating of my heart, listen, all of this became one, everything was all the same, and I'm still here in the center of it with a beating heart, same as everyone else. That is a really cool way to phrase that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now let's see if I can do justice to this last piece.
I'm sure you can.
And then we get to chat for 10 minutes about all of them together.
Yeah, let me give you I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to this, if you like.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. There are about, 8 to 10 crows in my immediate neighborhood. And they, crows like to hang together, and one of them perches on top of a lamppost out at the street and surveys, and if anything is going on, it shouts out to the other ones who come from wherever they're hanging out. And so I bought a bag of peanuts, a big 6-pound bag of roasted peanuts to take to the park and feed to the geese. And the geese moved on after giving birth to their young, and when their young got large enough, they moved to safer grounds and got away from the park. Anyway, so I have these peanuts in my car, and so I tossed a couple out for the crows, and I saw that they have trouble breaking them. So I started crushing them for them, and then, I'd crush 20 or 30 of them and toss them out on the sidewalk in front of my house. Then I come inside and I just wait for them to come down and start feeding. So that's what this poem is about, is the pleasure I get of feeding these these crows. The crows might, if a person has what you call a familiar, crows are my familiar. I had one as a pet when I was about 8 years old. I found in the woods with a broken wing and nursed it back to health. And so anyway, they're special to me. So here it is.
Beautiful. Okay, this one is titled Crows. Heaven knows we love the crows, in spite of their frequent chatter, the way they share what food they glean and care for one another. I feed them peanuts, crack their shells, and toss them to the sidewalk, then watch them through my window as they tear the shells apart. It won't take long to pick their fill before they head for water, and while they're gone, the blue jays come for the pieces the crows didn't bother. I love that. I love it.
It's humorous.
I also need to say the description before this piece, it is worthwhile, in my humble opinion, to note, or at least to point out maybe to people who are listening with us. Maybe, I guess not point out, but I'll say thanks on behalf of the crows. Thanks for making their food easier to eat, because it's a hard life out there for everyone. And,
yes.
There is something to be said on helping those around you. And this piece, the way you described it, is just a nice window into your soul, and I appreciate it. But I love this one. This is a fun one. This is a really fun one. All of the ones prior to this have kind of, I would say, a similar kind of chord they're striking. And this one, it feels like it definitely has a different pace to it. I like it. It's definitely like...
it's lighthearted.
Yeah, lighthearted. I was trying to think of a good word for it. That is the best word for it. It's a nice, lighthearted piece. And crows are fascinating to watch, so maybe chat with them one of these days. You're definitely on their map to come back and visit if you're giving them any food, so be prepared.
I know. They start hollering at me about 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, yeah. They're like, hey, are you awake? Because we're hungry.
That's right. Yeah, we're ready. Come on.
And the Blue Jays map as well. Trust me, all those birds are watching you, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I did is I decided that rather than have the shells out on the sidewalk and street, I would just shell the peanuts and just give them the peanuts straight. So they really liked it like that.
Good. Yeah, of course. Max, so in the middle of you talking right there, I had an idea for the last little bit of the show, which I haven't done in a while, and I'm not sure I've given you the opportunity to do ever, or in a while at least. So, to segue from the pieces, which I loved, and thanks so much for submitting, and if someone wants to be part of the show or discuss anything about the show with me, they can do so by emailing me at write.onair@gmail.com, write.onair@gmail.com. But Max, for the last 5 minutes, what would be your advice to new writers trying to get into writing? What should they try to do? What should they try not to do? What is what's a piece of advice from your heart?
Oh, boy. I get in trouble with this because, number one, I'm not, I have no training. I'm a seat-of-the-pants writer. I write what comes to my heart. And so when I hear people talk about classes on how to write poetry and stuff, I cringe because I don't think that writing in any form needs to be contrived. I think that if you feel inspired to write, you should just write. It doesn't matter what you write, just write and keep writing. As time goes by, you will develop a sense of the way you write, a sense of what feels correct to you in terms of balance in the way you write, and your ability to get your point across will improve. But the best advice I can give anybody is well, by golly, just keep writing, write. And don't worry about whether people like it or not. I write because I like to write. I couldn't stop if I wanted to, probably. And I think, if you were to check some of the Facebook pages out, like Absolutely Poetry or Facebook Poetry Society, there's several places out there, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of aspiring poets. And some of the stuff is, I say juvenile, and some of the stuff is so deep it just knocks your socks off. But the point is that they're doing it. They're writing. And that's what I encourage new or interested people to do. Write.
A beautiful violinist that I know locally in a band called the Pub Scouts here once told me, when I told her I was practicing my bass guitar, to just play. Don't practice, just play. And I think the same thing applies here. Don't practice it, just do it. I think I agree with everything you say. I think you just have to kind of, it's not even, don't go into it with the headspace of I have to buckle down and write. Just write about what you are thinking, what you want to talk about, what you are going for. And if there's nothing there, look around. There's probably something you can talk about. There's lots of quick writes you can do. There's many exercises. And as Max is saying, man, there are a lot of people out there who have communities that you can join and be part of to be heard and discuss and refine or just share anything.
Even your radio show.
Yeah, for one,
perfect.
Right here. There we go.
Perfect.
If you are a writer that has been working on a piece since 1967 or just written your first one yesterday, please submit to the show, write.onair@gmail.com, because that would be cool. And at some point, maybe we'll have if someone requests it, could have a show as Max Myers as a guest co-host, and we get to review your stuff and appraise it and enjoy it.
That'd be fun.
The world is open. We can do many things.
Yeah.
And again, before I go, just to touch on it, Max has 2 new publications. The first one is At the Feet of Sages, Volume 2, a collection of essays. And the second one is All Moments Are Grace, which he started in 1967 and worked all the way through to the spring of this year. It is worth reading. And check him out on his recent publication in Absolute Poetry on Facebook. So Absolute Poetry /Facebook. I'm sure a quick Google search would pop that up for you, or a search on Facebook. But Max, it has been a pleasure having you.
Thank you. The pleasure's all mine.
And we will have you on again for sure. Coming up next is Radio Radix. And Max, have a good night.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.